So it has been about a week or so since I finished Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I finished the main story, and I have played a bit of the post game as well, which I think has been enough to let me get a pretty decent grasp of what it is. I don't know if I'm quite ready to call it my favorite Xenoblade game, but I can see myself objectively calling it the best Xenoblade game. It's definitely better than 1X. I think in terms of gameplay and open world, I definitely prefer it to 2. When it comes to things like overall story and stuff, I'll have to replay it. I have to replay 2 to see how I feel about it. Music, I think I prefer to. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just go through 3 first, okay? Yeah, let's do that. So I guess we'll start with gameplay. This is the most complex gameplay in the series thus far. Like, it is truly a culmination of not just 1, not just 2, but also a lot of X, surprisingly enough. I suppose just seeing the nature of the open world through trailers, we kind of had a bit of an idea that that it would be more similar to X in that regard. It's a world on par with X's, but with the story depth of the numbered games, which is really, really cool. It did take some time to get used to. Stutter stepping is gone from 2, so that took a little bit of time to get used to. Learning to adjust to the different kinds of arts and the different kinds of recharges they have. There is a lot more variety when it comes to arts. That when it comes to 2, I say it's more closer to 1 and X in that regard, which is nice. It's one of the aspects that I actually prefer, rather than having all arts focused on just attacking or healing. Like debuffs and auras are now more of it. Well, they're not called auras, but debuffs and auras are now a thing again. Whereas with 2, they kind of weren't. I think by like hour 5th, like late game, like chapter 6, I was still uncovering new stuff about the combat. Things like quick moves are something that I didn't really start to really grasp until like hour 20, I would say. Ouroboros and chain attacks weren't stuff that I really understood the gist of until I want to say hour 4. I mean, I also knew how to use them, but not how to use them properly. So even if you are like a series veteran, you're definitely going to get you're definitely going to have an easier time with it, but it's definitely going to take a while. I wouldn't actually recommend that people go into this one first if you're a newcomer, solely because the gameplay is so much more complex than the previous 3 games. Like it literally feels like all 3 have been smushed together, and it's incredible, but it can be very, very overwhelming, I imagine, to someone who's never played a Xenoblade game before. I should probably also preface this that I started playing in hard mode right up until, I would say, the final boss, or the penultimate boss, I would say. Overall, it was a pretty fine experience. I don't feel like I was held back too much from discovering anything. I did change it back towards the end just because I was getting very edgy about not finishing the game quickly enough. So I really wanted to to finish it before like spoilers became a little bit more mainstream, if you could put it that way. So I did switch off for that little bit at the end, but other than that, I went through the whole game on hard mode. One thing that really that I really like is the character switching. So rather than having to go into a menu to like change the character that you're controlling, or even to like adjust your even to adjust like your party composition, you can just switch between any character you want. Like of the main 6 characters, you can switch between the mid gameplay, even mid battle as well, which makes sense given that all 6. This is the largest party in probably ever. In regards to the number of characters that you can have on screen, all 6 main characters are part of the active party at all times, which makes sense given that, you know, like, given the nature of the story. It makes sense that you wouldn't have to that you wouldn't need to have a menu dedicated for it. You can just do it whenever. And it really, not only does it make the flow of combat like really kind of exciting, like just switching between different characters as the situation demands. Not only does it mean that you can that you can essentially organize. You don't have to rely on the AI to do things like, say, continue the right combo. You can just switch over to the character that you need and do it yourself. But it also means that well, for me as well, for me personally, it means that it avoids the problem of not using certain characters, and which also kind of ties into the class system as well, which is also one of the things that has been borrowed from X a little bit. In the previous games, I would only ever really play like at most like a couple characters. In one, there I didn't really feel much need to switch to anyone other than Shulk and maybe Dunban. In 2, I usually rotate between Rex and Morag, maybe Tora. I probably spent less than an hour playing Nia in Xenoblade 2, which is shocking considering I've spent over 500 hours in there. And X, I mean, there's almost no point in playing any other character other than the avatar. I mean, because they can literally become any character they want through the class system and the taking of the unique arts as well. So yeah, like I didn't even know it was a thing until like 100 hours into X. But with 3, I think that having the character switching be so easy, be so like on the fly, it really kind of eliminates that problem, and if anything, it encourages you to swap characters. So I didn't really feel like that. I didn't really fall into the habit of just focusing on just one character. And again, that is also aided by the class system, which I haven't really gotten deep into like experimenting with yet, but I imagine like there are some insane party builds that you can get out of that, depending on like how many attackers, defenders, which classes specific you want. I think I've already kind of discovered one of the best ones. It's the Signifier class, which is Fiona's, and Miyabi's class, who's which I can't remember off the top of my head, but combining the two is absolutely monstrous. You don't even really need any other healers, just those two, and then you can combine the fast art recharge with the buffs of Signifier to essentially make your party invincible. I think that's definitely how I managed to get through late game, the last game area so quickly on hard mode. It's definitely that build. If you really want to break the game, then Fiona's class, Miyavi's class. Just watch it unfold. It is incredible. Another thing I also really want to talk about is the world. Like I mentioned, it really does feel like the culmination of everything, in that it has the massive world, and not only the massive world, but also the side content of X combined with the story depth and the character depth of 1 and 2. And I really want to go and talk about the side content of 3. I've always said that X has the best side missions of any of the Xenoblade games. I think 3 might take the cake now. It's incredible how they managed to not only have it engaging, but have it really like the general character writing and the missions and the plots that you go on. It honestly is at the same level as the main story, which is incredible for a numbered Xenoblade game. For one, I never really got into any of the side quests. I can't remember any memorable ones off the top of my head, really. For 2, it was a little bit better. The Blade quests definitely helped in that regard. But God, in 3, it is so good. Like, obviously, you have the hero quests, which is, the hero system is a genius way of keeping the fun of discovering new party members, despite having all the main characters available at the beginning of the game. But also, it really encourages you to get out there and explore the world, to really see what it has to offer, because you don't know what side quest you're going to stumble upon that is going to be a hero quest. You don't know when you're going to find your next hero. So it really incentivizes you to go out there and just explore as much as you can. And even the world itself, and even the non-hero side quests, they're all just really good. It's honestly incredible. So, I think now's probably as good a time as any to go on to the main story. God damn. These characters are so fucking good. I can't express enough how much I really love them. They honestly give the Xenoblade 2 cast an absolute run for their money. One thing I want to say is one thing I was really pleasantly surprised by was that even though we know that Ionios, the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it's a merger of All Rest and the Mechonis and the Bionis, and the races and the nations are obviously pulled from those two worlds. But in the lead up to the game, I was a little worried that it would just be like a direct sequel to both of those games, and I was pleasantly pleased that it is a lot more standalone than I initially thought. You'll definitely get a lot out of it if you've played the previous two, but you could play, I believe you could play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 without having played any of the previous games, and you would still enjoy the story and characters. I think it was an absolutely genius move to make all the main characters like around the same age. Previous games has been a somewhat broader age range, but God, the dynamic they all have is really incredible. And none of them feel really left behind either. Noah and Mio are the central figures in the narrative, you could say. They're more central than the others, and Noah obviously is the marketing protagonist. He's the boy with the red sword, of course he is. But none of them are left behind. All six have like whole like chapters where they feel like they're the main character of that chapter, and even then, everyone else still has these really great moments, and just seeing them slowly come together and like even with the setting being as grim as it is, they're still ultimately like teenagers, even if they are, relatively speaking, given the setting, old. They're just such great dorks to watch, especially towards the end of the game when they start to get really close. And one of my favorite cutscenes in the entire game, and one of my favorite cutscenes ever. It's around the midish point, where Noah and Mio are talking, and they've had a little bit of a fight, where Mio is starting to feel the pressure of, her impending death, and Noah has kind of accidentally been a little bit insensitive towards that. And at the end, the next day, they get together, they talk, and they hash things out, and they just talk a little bit about Mio and her facing her death, and they end up like exchanging their flutes, and they talk about how close they've become as friends. And it's a simple thing, but it's one of the best cutscenes in the game, honestly. Just seeing the two of them connect in this such a honest way, it is honestly beautiful, really. I can't describe any other word for it. It's just beautiful. With Noah, I was a little worried that he would end up being kind of a Shulk 2.0, but I'm really glad with how they handled him. He's really similar to Rex. He really feels proper for the setting. He's kind of he has much more of a philosophical edge to him than previous protagonists, a more blatant philosophical edge to him, which makes sense, I suppose, given the nature of his work. He is an officer, someone who mourns the dead, so he has a lot of interesting thoughts regarding things like life and his wants, and it's just really fascinating to see him just to see him engage with other characters and explore himself in that regard. Lance as well, again, similar to Noah, I was worried that he would kind of end up being like maybe a Ryan 2.0, and though he does fill that archetype that Ryan and to an extent Zeke also have, he's definitely his own character. He's he this probably isn't going to make too much sense to anyone who lives outside the UK, but he's kind of a lad, but in a good way. He's a good lad. Uni is just great. Like, oh god, like putting aside how great her dialogue is, and just the incredible voice work that Kitty does for her. Just the English cast all around is just phenomenal. Sorry, I bumped my glasses into there. But yeah, Uni is just great. And though she has obviously her sass and her attitude is just absolutely wonderful, especially when paired with Tyon. She really is a very emotionally intelligent and very caring young woman who just has a bit of a rough but still very friendly exterior. Tyon is great. I love him. It's great to finally have some proper good melanin in the series, melanin representation. But yeah, seeing him as well become more and more open with his friends, while still not losing that kind of stuck-up, cautious aspect of his character that makes him who he is. He's great. Senna is absolutely adorable. I love her. She's great. Her character arc of learning to really kind of embrace herself and really take pride in who she is great. It pairs quite nicely with like Lance's feelings of guilt over like Yoren's death and that. Just overall, just all of them together is just, they're just great guys. the heroes as well, the heroes that you can recruit as well, they're all great. It took me about 80 or something 85-ish maybe hours to beat the game. The reason for that is probably because I wanted to get every single hero, and I did manage to get every single hero, not counting the post-game ones. And they're all great. I managed to find them all diegetically, which is quite cool. Sorry about that. I think the only one I had to look up for was Sigiri, who is probably the last one that I think a lot of people are going to get, just because unlocking her involves going through a lot of quest lines that I had managed to miss. So I don't doubt that I would have been able to go get her eventually, but I really wanted to get them all before the final boss, which is really cool, which I'll get to in a minute. I think my favourites might be Gray. Gray's just like kind of cool, and like his back and forth with Uni, who just doesn't take any of his shit, is just great. Fiona is possibly the most adorable character in the series. She's just this cute Scottish baby who leads a colony of other babies. It's like the whole time I was doing a quest, I was just wandering around seeing how young everyone was, and it's just like they're all so fucking cute. It's honestly incredible. Like, it honestly almost took me out of it a little bit just because of how, God, it's just ridiculous. It honestly is. Ashira as well. God, how could I forget her? God, absolute warrior queen. I still haven't done a lot of the Ascension quests for some of them, a lot of them. So I'm definitely going to have to explore a lot more of them, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to getting to understand them a lot more. When it comes to the antagonists of the game, the consoles, Mobius, Zed, I can see a lot of people being disappointed in them because they're a different type of villain compared to Torna and Amalthus of 2. And I feel like they are very different villains, and I won't blame them if people don't like the kind of characters that they are. But, and I'm saying this as someone who really likes the villains of 2, Jin, Malos, Amalthus, all of them, I don't think it's really fair to compare them, given how different what they're trying to do are. Mobius and Zed are really more about what they represent, rather than them being these like deep, like rich, sympathetic characters in their own right. They very much feed into the game's theme of war. I'm going to go more in depth with this in a video essay that I'm making at the moment, but Mobius to me represents like the ruling class, essentially, or war profiteers in general. War is ultimately obviously a very big theme of the game, but I don't think I was really prepared for how big the theme it really was. I should say, I really didn't think about what a game being about war would mean, because this isn't just a game about war, it's a game that examines war. And it does this a lot through Mobius. Ultimately, they're people who benefit from the status quo. They benefit from how horrible things are for ordinary people. They are your absurd billionaires. They're your corrupt politicians. They're your military industrialists. They have no reason to change things, despite how awful they are for horrible people, because they're for normal people, because they're the ones who benefit from it. They are very much representative of the establishment, and nowhere else is that better represented than with Zed. I think a lot of people went into 3 with the expectation that Zed would be like, I don't know, Zanza or something, like a new incarnation of Zanza. Personally, I was always a little worried that he would be that. I'm very pleased with the direction they went with him. He's more of a personification. He's a being born of the desires and fears of people, anxieties regarding the future, and a desire to keep things as they are now, which makes him a very fascinating thing to talk about in regards to the themes he represents. We've all had our moments, I suppose, where we've had moments that we sit there and we think, I wish this would last forever. Or we've thought about the future and we've thought, I wish that would never come. I hope that never comes because I'm afraid of bad things happening, really. And Zed is essentially all of those fears personified and given human form. And that makes him really fascinating and really interesting to talk about, to think about. And I suppose perhaps a lot of people might be disappointed with him, considering that he, as a character in and of himself, isn't particularly, I suppose, in depth. But honestly, that really isn't the point of what he is. He's not meant to be this like Jin or Malos type character where he's like got all these like layers to him. You can perhaps infer aspects of that from him. There's a especially seen within the during the line of dialogue that he has within the final boss where he breaks down and he kind of he rants about how the self is all that exists, and the only cure for despair when you can't choose your own fate, it leads to a despair that can only be saved, that can only be cured by complete oblivion, by death, essentially. And then he just rants and rants about how much he hates the world, which is interesting because it also addresses the idea that the people within the system, the people who benefit from them, that they too are also trapped by the system they benefit from. And you do see this with the rest of Mobius to an extent. They are very hateable people, obviously. I mean, it's hard not to resent them. They are directly facilitating and exploiting this pointless war solely for their own benefit, solely so that they can live forever. But I think the reason I feel pity for them is because a lot of the times they're motivated by these feelings of fear and inadequacy. It's more that this is my interpretation, less that they've started out as actively sadistic and malicious, but more that they became that out of necessity in order to simply find meaning. The main thing motivating Mobius is a fear of death and really a fear of losing all meaning as well, because when one becomes Mobius, you gain access to all the past lives that you're aware that you've ever had, and thus one becomes totally aware of essentially the futility of existence and of trying to change the world. And so they instead try to seek a new meaning through things like strength and power over other people. It's really quite sad when you think about it, and it's something that Noah kind of picks up on. The prime example of this is with K, Console K. After he dies, and he's dying like screaming in fear, like, no, I don't want to die, that kind of thing. Noah actually off-sees him, which is a very big character moment, I think, for him. Not just in the sense of how empathetic he is, but also in regards to his philosophy. I think it really demonstrates that. It's a really, really good moment for him, I think. I do think that it would have been cool to perhaps get a little bit more interaction, I suppose, between Zed and the rest of Mobius. In particular, Y and X, I think, were perhaps little bit missed opportunities. Y less so, but X especially, I think, because Y and X are original Mobius alongside Z. So and I feel like it would have been cool to see them. I don't know, be evil together. I don't know, it would have been cool. X especially because I didn't know she's supposed to be the third to last boss before Y and before Z, which makes sense. But she doesn't show up unless you've completed Uni's Ascension quest, which I was actually on my way to do, but because I wasn't, because I was a little bit under-leveled for it, I ended up just avoiding it entirely until the end of the game. So I completely missed her boss fight, which I don't really get why they did that. And it's a real shame because, I mean, in the Ascension quest, I like her. I like X a lot. I like her voice. She's actually got the same voice as Vale and Zenobia from Xenoblade 2, which is cool. I really like her design as well. It gives me gender envy. So yeah, it would have been cool to see more of her, I think. Maybe at the very least make her boss fight mandatory, you know, a mandatory part of the game. But I mean, she's still, like, I suppose she still takes part in the final boss as Z Infinite, as well as Y Infinite, and as X Infinite, I should say, and Y Infinite and Z Infinite as well. So that's kind of cool. Speaking of that final boss, that shit is quite possibly the most hype thing I've ever seen. So it starts off like with Zed in his amphitheater, and he disables chain attacks and interlinking. And this whole section, phase, I really like how above everything he seems. He really feels like he isn't trying at all. Like he's just kind of like slouching there in the air. He barely moves when you attack him. He keeps absorbing like these shields, so you're not even really hurting him until the end. And I just really like the vibe it gives that you really are struggling against this being who is so far above you that he doesn't even care. It then transitions into this absolutely insane, like, digital head thing, where, like, and then, like, so you fight on top of, like, Origin, and then in the background you have Melia and Nia turning their castles into Phoroneses, and it is incredible how, like, it is absurd. And I absolutely fucking love it. It's incredible. And then, like, as you're fighting Z Infinite, and Y Infinite, the heroes that you've gathered, this is what I was talking about earlier, the heroes that you've recruited throughout the story, they come in and they start helping you because they've split the party into the Kevis and the Agnes squads. The heroes come in, they start helping you as well. And it is so fucking hype. I'm so glad that I got all of the heroes because it is so hype seeing them all come in and help. And when it's Z Infinite, all the parties reunited, and then Nia and Melia come in to help as well, and it is possibly the most. I can see people being a little turned off by it. It's like its sheer length and how long it goes on, but it's the best one for me. It's the best final boss purely by the strength of its presentation. It is just so good. It reminds me a lot of Evangelion, actually, specifically the final Evangelion film, Thrice Upon a Time, which I made a video essay about. And yeah, it's just really interesting how they end up covering a lot of similar thematic ground. But also the final boss has these similar feelings of these just absolutely absurd proportions and just insane spectacle. It's really interesting. Perhaps it merits further thoughts, but it's just an observation that I had. Another thing I observed as being quite similar to the game was also Final Fantasy 15. Interesting enough, in terms of like gameplay details, like I mean, there's the return to a very to a very emphasized open world, obviously. You also have, I suppose, the structure of the party. You have a set number of characters who are always with you, who are always together. And occasionally you'll have like guest characters helping in as well. You also have the nature of the story of like really placing emphasis on the bonds that they share. You also have like cooking as well that gives you benefits. You also have your clothes gradually getting dirty, which you can clean at rest spots. It's something I picked up on in the pre-release, but it's an amusing thing. Yeah, I have to wonder if they did take direct inspiration from it, but I mean, it was never. I mean, yeah, my nana can even pick up new recipes by going to like canteens, like how Ignis can like pick up recipes when you go to like other restaurants. So yeah, it really is interesting, isn't it? I could go on forever and ever about just every aspect about this game, but I think I'll wrap things up and go straight to the ending. The ending is, God, it hits you right there. I almost don't know what to say. They're all just such good characters, and seeing that even Riku and Manana got me feeling things when they were running towards each other as the worlds were separating, and God, it was so good, so good. Seeing Melia forever alone, of course. God, nobody else suffers as much as she does, I swear. At least Nia ended up being pretty good. I swear, when Poppy came out of the Cloud Keep, I literally like laughed. I gave this like shrill like laugh of glee, and then I saw the picture of like the entire party with like a grown-up Rex having like with kids with Pyra, Mithra, and Nia. God, that was so good. he really meant it when he said that he loved her and all you guys. God, I love how that picture retroactively changes that entire scene. I mean, to be fair, I kind of guessed that was what it meant, but like to actually get that kind of confirmation, it was really great, really great. I'm not entirely sure where the DLC campaign is going, the expansion is going to go. They've said that it's going to be on the same scale as something like Torna, the Golden Country. So, which basically means that it's going to be like its own like bite-sized JRPG attached to this one. So, I don't know. I think the only two realistic ones are a continuation of the game's story and also a look into the past at like previous Ouroboros. I think it would be cooler to go for a future, looking into the future of the worlds, the two worlds as perhaps they merge, but properly in the future this time. I think it would also work well with the themes, I suppose, of moving forward really and not being stuck in like the present or the past. But I mean, I have faith in Monolith and Takahashi and everyone else at Monolith Soft. I think they could probably make something decent, even out of a previous Ouroboros one, like I don't know, N and M or something like that. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I guess to finish this off, just God, such a good game. 10 out of 10 for me personally. Yeah, like I said, I do think it is objectively. I perhaps not objectively words. I would call it objective from my point of view. I would call it the best Xenoblade game. In regards to being my favorite, I'm a little bit unsure as to I'm a little bit unsure as to calling it that. I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to do that. I think I would have to replay 2, but definitely one of my favorite games ever, and I will absolutely, just like 2 and just like X, I've no doubt that I'll be sinking hundreds and hundreds of hours into it, especially with how good the side content is. We've got so much to go. So, yeah. God. I'm so glad this game exists. Make sure you've got notifications on for the main channel for when I do post that Xenoblade 3 analysis. I'll update the description when it does come out. I'm hoping sometime next week. Although I suppose most people are going to see this when it comes out, so me telling you this is pointless, but I suppose this is for the benefit of the patrons who are seeing this early. So, yeah, I'm hoping to get that out next week from recording now, which is the 19th. So, yeah, can't wait to talk more about this game. Thank you for listening to me ramble on and on about it incoherently. It was fun to do this. It was nice to sort through my thoughts a little bit. I'm hoping to do this with other stuff as well. So yeah, if you're interested in that, then subscribe to this channel. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye bye.